Thank you. Well, as Wendell just mentioned, there are published reports out today that the president's gun control plans include some 19 executive orders that will work around the edges of, we're not sure, some of the nation's current gun rules on background checks and a number of other issues. Will they supplement them? Will they clarify them? We have to wait to find out. And as Jay Carney just mentioned, the administration says it knows that there are limits to what the president can do. Joining us now, Judge Andrew Napolitano, a Fox News senior judicial analyst. The president needs to be careful. This is not some statute he's messing with. It's the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, right there in the Bill of Rights, which was intended to keep government away from our guns and to stop it from messing with people's right to bear arms. However, it's not absolute. Gun legislation has been passed in the past, and presidents, including a Republican president, George H.W. Bush, have issued executive orders tightening the gun control restrictions.
Yes.
So how far can President Obama go?
Well, it's a great question, Megan. The statute on which President George H.W. Bush relied said that the president could ban importation into the U.S. of weapons that were not, quote, suitable for sporting purposes, closed quote. And then it left up to the president and his advisors to determine what that means, suitable for sporting purposes. George H.W. Bush, himself a hunter, and throughout his career, candidly, a defender of Second Amendment rights, tightened up the meaning of suitable for sporting purposes so as to exclude from lawful importing in the U.S. You could own it in the U.S. if you somehow got it. But if you're a dealer, you couldn't bring it here. If you're a seller in another country, you couldn't sell it to someone in the U.S. Guns that he was able to determine had purposes other than sporting. This is an example of an area of governmental authority where the president has discretion. President Obama, that law, by the way, is a 1968 statute from the LBJ years, and it's still on the books. President Obama could, if he wanted to, without violating the law, redefine that even tighter than President George H.W. Bush has. It hasn't been touched since he was president in 1989, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's an area he could lawfully go to.
What else could he do? Because what we're hearing sounds, I mean, not like he's not going to go to the third rail, but I don't know. We're talking 19 orders. I'm hearing reports about 3 possible orders, including possibly giving the Centers for Disease Control authority to conduct national research on guns. I mean, so they're going to go research it.
Okay.
More aggressive enforcement of existing gun laws. The president controls enforcement through the FBI, through the DOJ.
Right.
And through the ATF. Pushing for wider sharing of existing gun databases among federal and state agencies. Do any of those jump out at you?
Well, no. Those things would be lawful for the president to do, and they actually regulate the government. They tell people in the executive branch of the government how the chief executive officer, the president, wants laws to be enforced. Now, for example, the DEA regulates gun dealers. They look at the records of gun dealers once every 6 months. The president could have them look at the records of gun dealers once every month, once every week. It would be very expensive for them to do it, but if they did, it would slow down the process of their selling guns because they'd be spending a great deal of their time dealing with DEA agents who were poring over their records. Some people would say, well, that's harassment. Other people would say that's law enforcement that is within the president's prerogative. An interesting idea that was floated by Rahm Emanuel, the current mayor of Chicago and the president's former chief of staff, would be for the president to ask the Environmental Protection Administration to use its regulatory authority to impose a fee on manufacturers of ammunition. The theory being ammo is made out of lead. Lead bullets eventually end up in the earth. The dirt around the lead has to be cleaned up, and therefore the government, which does much of the cleaning, needs to be reimbursed.
Oh, boy.
Pass that tax along, and it will double the cost of bullets, and that will deter people from buying bullets because they can't afford them, or it will force people into buying black market bullets that don't have that tax.
I mean, could he get away? That seems a bit tenuous in terms of, federal powers, but you tell me.
I think it is tenuous. I think it would be unconstitutional and unlawful. I think that a court would interfere with it. But remember, Megan, we are not dealing with a fair-minded person attempting to resolve a problem of paramount public importance. We are dealing with a mindset that is profoundly against the Second Amendment and will push its ability to infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms to the constitutional limits.
He claims he's not. He gave that famous speech in which he said, I'm not going to come after your guns. I believe in some reasonable gun control measures, but I'm not going to come after your guns. And, if you look at his first term, Judge, He didn't do anything to crack down on guns.
You're right. We'll see what he does tomorrow. He's confronted with a Senate that his party controls, but there are many Democrats in that Senate who are in favor of the Second Amendment, and he's confronted with a House of Representatives with noticeable antipathy towards him on almost everything and is profoundly in favor of the Second Amendment. We'll see how far he can go. But even in his press conference earlier this week, Megan, you and I talked about this, he indicated a willingness to do whatever it takes to raise the debt ceiling, whether Congress goes along with it, and now to keep guns out of the hands of people that he doesn't want them to have, even though this is not a federal function, and even though he can't change any laws without Congress.
That's the thing, is that the executive orders are not to be used to change the law or to get around Congress's unwillingness to pass a law. And that's why we have separation of powers. So you can't go too far with it. If you want to clarify, further enforcement, sort of assist an existing law, that's one thing. If you try to do an end around or just create an order that is a law that could not get passed, then you're on dangerous ground, right?
Exactly. I'll give you two examples we all know about. When Harry Truman became president, he signed an executive order desegregating the military and the civilian workforce in the federal government. Great thing to do. Then he issued an executive order seizing the steel mills so that he could have all the steel he needed for the Korean War. The Supreme Court said you can do the first one, you can't do the second one. The first one complements the Constitution and existing laws. The second one interferes with freedom of commerce.
Judge, great to have you. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure, Megan.